Top 3 reasons to be an agnostic. Reason number 1, attitude towards personal belief. The issue of personal beliefs is not always as simple as it may seem. A believer is one who has faith in a particular religion. An atheist is one who has a lack of belief in one or more religions. But precisely because of these two perspectives, I find it important to leave myself space and freedom for a different option. Again, a reduction to the opposites, as practical as it may seem, may turn out to be unsatisfactory over time. Simply, agnosticism may provide openness to a grander perspective, and thus, sometimes successfully compensates for the shortcomings of other opposing positions. So, why can't I line up into either of those two categories? Because I personally find that the percentage of my beliefs tends to vary, depending on the time, situation, and possible change in the overall perspective, from 0% to 100%. Conclusion: agnosticism offers many advantages, and most importantly, an alternative from being classified into one of two categories, of which, it could be noted, both have advantages and disadvantages. Reason number 2, practicality. The agnostic perspective offers several advantages, one of which is undoubtedly practicality. In the case of conflicts of a verbal nature between mutually opposing sides, the agnostic, ideally, can be exempted from such a conflict. Of course, in practice, such an option may not always be available, but it is one of the possibilities. Example: if an agnostic is insensitively accused by a believer of being a non-believer, the agnostic can refute it without much trouble. Also, if atheists maliciously accuse him of being a believer, the agnostic can refute them with a smile, and point out their misunderstanding of his or her position. To put it a little sarcastically, sometimes it is useful to keep the option of plausible deniability. And what is it, exactly? Plausible deniability mostly refers to circumstances where a denial of responsibility or knowledge cannot be proved as true or untrue, due to a lack of evidence proving the allegation. Also, in undesirable cases of accumulation of negative consequences of an emotional, physical, or spiritualistic nature, agnosticism may prove useful to minimize harm, depending on the individual and his approach. Of course, I note here that I do not consider the agnostic perspective ideal for occasional abstinence from intellectual conflict over religious issues, but I do consider it to be one of several high-quality starting points. Reason number 3, openness to change. Personally, I find the possibility of changing my skeptical attitude, which I consider agnostical, an interesting possibility. Why? Because it is, at least for me, I do not consider changing opinions and personal beliefs for the sake of convincing evidence to be a bad approach. Of course, it is possible and very likely to expect angry individuals on both sides, disappointed and provoked by some of my views which, by no means surprising, do not successfully synchronize to theirs. But viewed from a more optimistic side, agnostic openness to change can provoke a friendly approach from both sides. How? Very simple. Believers may feel called to instruct agnostics in their doctrines, and their hope and optimism in the success of their engagement will not quickly evaporate, because the individual they are trying to convert is not, in conjunction with conventional reductive thinking, a member of the opposite side. Not to lengthen, the same goes for non-believers who try something like that. Of course, the success of both depends on many factors, and I cannot claim to have any profound knowledge of who could ultimately be more successful. The main and most important question, is this approach honest or practical? Both, I sincerely believe, for it is better to have an approach that encourages hope and creativity in both, than to confine oneself to the conflict, opposition, and propensity to provoke inconveniences which, I humbly conclude, both sides possess.